Now on the outside of these, you could take this off the lathe with the chuck, leave the chuck intact, and if you have a large disc sander, you could knock these bumps off if you want. If the chatter bothers you, it doesn't bother me, so I just turn them. And I apologize for the lighting. I'm a rookie at this. This is only my second actual YouTube video. And all this will smooth out. And I'm not shooting for any specific dimensions on this, except for where that bearing went in. Everything's just by eye. I think she's going to be a beauty. Okay, I'll get 4 more layers put on this and be back for some more turning. Now we have 4 more layers on. Let's get these done. I'm going to lengthen my tool to have more leverage on it. And a little bit more to go. And I would prefer to do this with the tool rest on the inside, but I can't get a good camera angle that way. So you get rid of a lot of this chatter if I were doing that. I'm also going to check this for square. That looks really good. And some of you may have noticed I changed my handle because this one doesn't have, this one has this long straight edge that I'm eyeing down to the bed of my lathe to make sure I'm perpendicular. And this just doesn't have enough straight on it. And these contoured ones are useless for that. I like these. These are nice. We are almost there. Could almost sand that out. I'm going to get the chips out. Oh, that's just a little bit more, about a 32nd of an inch. I think I'm going to leave the rest of that for sandpaper. That just looks like glue residue, not even, I can't even feel that. Okay, now for the outside. And again, when I'm setting up my tool rest, I'm eyeballing down the tool rest to the bed of the lathe and lining it up with the bed of the lathe. And it's not perfect, but it gets you really close. And then you can use the back of this as a guide as you're running your tool. And it's usually really close when you do that. That inside turned out perfect, just perfectly square. Gonna find a sharper spot on my cutter. Seems a little dull. Oh, that's better. That's why I like these carbide tools. You can sharpen them that quick. I had a comment on my previous video that the guy said once he's set up, it takes him just a minute to sharpen them. But I work in a very small shop. I don't have room to set up a grinder. I have my grinder, but it's under the bench. And I do use traditional tools, but I like these carbide tools. They're safe, easy to use. Anybody can use them. And let's face it, we all have better things to do than to go to urgent care on the weekend. I know I don't want to be there. Let's see how we did. I mean, we got a little happy with it, but we'll true it all up later when we're all done. It's looking good. Okay, we have 3 more layers to go, and then back for some more turning. Now we'll true up the outside. I turned the sound off for the doing this because it was howling pretty good. You guys don't need to hear that noise. If you're like me, you're just watching to watch the chips fly anyway. So I'm gonna true this up and then we'll sand it and put a finish on it. And I'm using 11 by 11, and these have a 50 millimeter radius on it, which is 2-inch. And I like these because if you use the square ones, the corner of them will dig in a little bit when you're doing this kind of operation. I really like these. They come in handy, but be careful when you're putting them in your tool holder. If you get these in a little crooked, they will go in. They fit in your standard 11 millimeter square holder, but these you can get them in a little crooked. And if you do, when you tighten them down, carbide is very brittle and they shatter. And you don't want that. So we're just gonna, I changed to a 12-inch tool rest and made sure it was parallel to my workpiece by looking down at the bed and eyeballing this tool rest so it's parallel with that gap in the bed. And then you can just rest your finger on the back and use that as a guide. I really wish I could have fit my steady rest in here, but this piece is, my steady rest is only good for up to 9 inches. I'm going to have to modify it to take larger diameters, but with a steady rest, you wouldn't have this chatter. But that's okay. Just take light cuts, and if it starts chattering, just lighten up the pressure, slow down your the rate of your cut. And you'll feel anywhere there's a high spot as you're running this tool in, and just take your time and just take all the high spots off. I took a little too much material off in this area right here on my other layers. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we'll hit this with a large block. With all that chattering, typically you can get away with using that tool and then some 220 and it slicks it right up. But because of all that chattering, it's not rough, but it's not as smooth as it would have been if I didn't have all that vibration. Time to put a finish on. What I'm going to use is lacquer sanding sealer to start with. And I have this thinned about 25% with acetone. I like it thin. I like it to soak into the wood. And I do it on the lathe. It's just because it's fun. So I just get this going, squirt some in there, get my brush, and I put a nice heavy coat on. It soaks in pretty good. And then after the sealer dries, I'll sand it to 320 and probably use some of the red Scotch-Brite. And then I'll shoot polyurethane on it, 1 or 2 coats, probably 2. Another favorite finish of mine is use the exact same sanding sealer and then use a friction finish with beeswax. Turns out beautiful. Use those for if you're making a candy dish or something that's not going to see any abuse. That's always a good finish. And I'm just using what I have. I think this is a makeup brush or something that I got somewhere. And that's all there is to that. Next time you see this, it will be off the lathe. I'm going to cut the spud I put on there on the back side to hold it in the spindle chuck. I'll cut that off and be putting that bearing in the bottom. And I'll put the bearing in after we get the polyurethane on. So I think I will have this done today. It's a nice thing about using lacquer sanding sealer. It dries extremely fast. You can sand this in 15-20 minutes and your surface will be like a mirror. But that's the process. Sanding is so much easier when you're on the lathe. Much easier to do it on the lathe. Oh, and by the way, I put a 2x2 underneath my lathe so it tips this up. So when you squirt the sealer inside, it doesn't all run out. That's it's kind of a need to know tip. You make a mess if you were to just squirt that in there. And I'll get all the surfaces I can right now. I'm not going to be able to get the part where it's attached to the spindle chuck, but I'll get that later. And you've probably noticed the lathe is running in reverse. It's just easier to put this finish on, easier to put it on like when it's in reverse for me. another reason to buy a variable speed lathe is for doing operations like this. You really can't do it at normal speed. You need it to run real slow. And I've seen guys, they'll take resins and put inside and turn the lathe on real slow and just let it sit there overnight. They'll put it on about that speed and just till the resin cures, and it comes out like a mirror. But that's it for that.